Hello, Sanaa. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
How are you, Ayadan?
And I'm okay.
Are we all ready? Is everybody
Yeah,
ready and happy?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. The Hamas-led attack of October 7th, 2023, sparked a war that rages to this day. It has forced millions from their homes, injured hundreds of thousands, and killed tens of thousands. It has created millions of stories of loss, struggle, and survival against the odds. This is one of those stories. Sanaa Kamal is a freelance journalist from Gaza City.
I have been working as a journalist for 19 years. I have produced hundreds of stories about the situation inside Gaza, in particular the humanitarian stories reflecting the life inside Gaza.
Like so many people in Gaza, Sanaa's life has been changed beyond all recognition and sanity. My name is Hugo Goodrich. I'm a journalist and producer at the New Arab in London. And last year, Sanaa reached out to me and asked to share her story. Joining me for this was Yazin Al-Sadi.
I am the international correspondent editor. I've been working with the New Arab for more than 3 years now, and I've been working in journalism less than Sanaa, actually. I've been working for about 15 years.
This is Sanaa's Odyssey, Episode 3, reporting from the fire of a story. The war in Gaza has wrought untold damage on the coastal enclave and its people. Among the many tragedies that it has inflicted is stealing the livelihoods of Gaza's people. Just among Sanaa's family, 3 of her brothers lost their job at a factory, another brother lost his job as a mechanic, and another lost his job as a musician. Sanaa alone kept her job as a journalist and became the family's breadwinner, supporting 28 people.
When I was a student at the university, I started my education in university with IT. And I wasn't a journalist, but all the time I believed that I would like to be a policewoman.
Sanaa's father had been a policeman in Gaza.
But because of my family rejection to be a policewoman, mainly during the Palestinian Authority that was leading Gaza, I decided to turn from the IT to the journalism because I thought at that time that maybe to be a journalist you would have more power, you would have more space to search for the truth and to search about the actions that were doing around me. So I decided to be a journalist.
At the time, corruption was a serious problem in Gaza.
The most thing that attracted me to the journalism profession is searching for the truth, because I believe that every person in this world have the right to know the truth and to live in a world that have clear and frank news around him or herself without any lies that would affect their lives, mainly for those people who live in buffer zones and who live in areas that don't have stability for their locals and residents.
Sanaa began her career working as a freelance journalist when she was 19.
Once I decided to be a journalist, I decided also to not work in any Palestinian outlet.
Why?
I tried to work with maybe Arab and international outlets just to be not under the Palestinian rule or the Palestinian power, because earlier I realized that when I would like to work with any Palestinian outlets, I have to be under their rules that would limit my power, that would limit my thinking, in addition that will not allow me to think out of the box, and this is would limit my freedom, because all the time I'm seeking for the freedom also, not only the truth. All the time, I believe that without freedom, we will not live in peace in our life.
Sanaa's driving force in journalism is justice.
I believe that there is nothing easy in this life. Everything in this life have many challenges, many difficulties that we will face, and the challenge just to pass it and to cross it, or maybe to take what we would like to get in our own, either in our thinking, in our own ideology, in our own beliefs, in our own life. Everything have many challenges. So maybe because my father was a policeman, and he all the time told us you shouldn't be under the power from any other person. You should be under the law, and you should increase your own stability in addition to keep it in your life, just to be a good person, either for the woman or even for the men. So such lessons I got them since I was a child, and when I grow up and be a journalist all the time, I believe that I haven't been under any limit thinking, or not under any rules that would prevent me from using my right in searching of the truth, or even about exposing the lies, exposing the corruption, exposing any crimes in our society.
Almost any journalist has to contend with the authorities. In countries with good records of press freedoms, that's not normally too much of a problem. The fewer the press freedoms, the greater the difficulties. In Gaza, the authorities were an issue that Sanaa had to navigate.
When I started my working as a journalist, the Palestinian Authority was in its latest era. And then we involved in Hamas government, and then when I covered a lot of stories, also those that against some actions of the Hamas government, I believed that I do that just as a human, without any political background, because I'm not involved in any Palestinian faction inside Gaza. So when they rejected me, and when they tried to accuse me about I'm working with foreign policies, every time I proved for them, no, I'm working against the corruption. I'm working against something that it's rejected by our people. So I'm caring about my people. I'm not caring about any foreign policies, and they didn't prove, or can't accuse me for this.
When it came to the Hamas authorities, Sanaa had to walk a fine line.
Despite I have a lot of rejection and a lot of complaints of many persons who were leaders in Hamas government, but to be honest, I had a lot, and the other side, I have a lot of relationship and friendship with others, even those who were working with Hamas government, just because they believed me. They believed that I'm a Palestinian girl who really would like to live in Gaza, and who really would like to be an ambassador for Gaza, to change the type of the Palestinian people inside Gaza, as most of the people around the world, only when they think that Gaza is living under the wars all the time, and that the Palestinian people only can carry maybe the weapon, can carry the stones. By my stories, I proved that it's not totally true, even if I'm against their political ideas. But we have to be true, and we have to be clear and frank with the world, and to tell them the truth about the life inside Gaza. After 4 years of my working, I decided to focus only on the positive stories inside Gaza, to change the ideology, or to change the thinking of Gaza Strip, and to let the world to see what are really the Gazans inside Gaza. And we have a lot of people who have positive ideas, and who can think out of the boxes, and who can build their own society based on the human rights.
Sanaa had the best intentions with her work. acknowledge the problems, highlight the good, and shine a light on those making a positive impact. Sanaa was fierce in her work and fiercely proud to be doing her work as a Palestinian.
I have never dealt with any story that I covered as a woman, because all the time I covered it as a human, because I believe about the equality between the woman and between the man. When I challenged some problems with the authorities, when they looked at me and told me, oh, okay, you are a woman, I told them, no, I'm not a woman, I'm a journalist. So you should deal with me and react with me as a journalist, not as a woman, because maybe I'm stronger than you and maybe I'm weaker than you. It doesn't matter who I am, if I am a man or a woman. But the basic thing that I depend on, that I'm not involved in any Palestinian faction that prevented the Palestinian authorities in Gaza to accuse me of working with other factions, because in Palestinian society we have a lot of division between the Palestinian factions. This is the main thing that I hold it all the time, and after many years of working I became that I was very correct to decide not involved in any Palestinian faction, just to protect myself from any internal accusation from the Palestinian authorities.
During her career, Sanaa did have run-ins with the authorities who would rather she cease her work. But there was someone far more powerful than the Hamas authorities who continually pushed her forward: her father.
When I criticized what's happening inside Gaza, mostly my mother, who concerned and worried about me than my father when he was alive. She felt that you are a girl and you are a woman and you shouldn't do that. Either the Palestinian authorities or even the Israeli army would like to kill you. None of this world will help you. You should take your about yourself and about us and about everything in this life. But for my father, no. All the time he encouraged me to do what I believe in, even if I would like to criticize anyone, either the Israeli army, as I used all the time to criticize, not only to criticize, to accuse him of committing crimes against the Palestinian people, or even when I criticize the Palestinian authorities of their actions against the human rights inside Gaza. And he all the time told me that you are now a woman, an adult woman, who can decide and who can protect herself. But just when you cover any story, you should think about its consequences, and not only for your society, but also for yourself. So if you are ready to challenge the consequences, you can go ahead. If not, you should stop.
Sanaa didn't stop, and the consequences of what it meant to be a journalist in Gaza became clear early on in her career.
I realized that the journalists in Gaza are being attacked by the Israeli army since 2008. When the Israeli army tank attacked our cameraman colleague Fadel Shina'a, when he was filming a story about the Israeli invasion in the eastern areas of El Buraj refugee camp in the center of Gaza Strip.
During the recent war in Gaza, much has been said about the targeting and killing of journalists. But this is not a new phenomenon.
At that time, I was a new journalist in the field, and at that time, I realized that none of the Palestinian journalists, even those who are working with international outlets, are protected from the Israeli attacks. To be honest, at that time, also, I was afraid, and I felt that I wouldn't like to continue my journey in this profession because I may be killed by the Israeli army. But later, I decided to continue my profession and my journey in this career because I believed that I have a mission of continue the letter and the message of my colleague, the videographer and cameraman Fadil Shinna'a.
Fadl Sanaa was 24 years old when he was killed by an Israeli tank. As a new journalist, the war of 2008 was a baptism of fire and blood. As her career progressed, the lessons would continue. Sanaa would learn much during the Great March of Return, a series of demonstrations held between 2018 and 2019. During the marches, protesters demanded the right to be able to return to their lands, which had been taken by Israel.
War by war, I realized more and more the main goals and the main goals of the Israeli army to be killed. During the return march that were launched in the eastern areas of the Gaza Strip, when the Israeli army killed our colleague, and by the way, he's one of my best friends, Murtaja. When the Israeli army killed him, actually I was shocked and asked myself why they killed him and why the Israeli army decided to kill the journalists and the photographers despite they wearing their helmets and their press vests. Then at that time I believed that the Israeli army will kill us.
Sanaa was right to be concerned for her safety. The Israeli army had shown her what they were willing to do and that they knew who she was.
I was covering a march, one of the marches there, and I was approached to the fence separating between Gaza and the Israeli cities. At that time, to do some interviews with the protesters there, I wore my vest, and the Israeli soldier decided to shoot a guy who was very close to me. I remembered that one of the Israeli soldiers told me through a machine that Sanaa Kamal, you should go out and you should back from this area to not kill you. I remembered this, and then I was shocked. Looked at him because actually it was only 300 meters between me and between the soldier. And once I moved, I heard the Israeli army shot the young man and he was killed.
In total, 223 people would be killed during the marches, and over 9,000 injured. Israel's targeting of journalists would continue during its recent war.
During this war, the Israeli army decided to expand his targeted to include the whole Palestinian people inside Gaza, including the militants, the government employees, the innocent people, children, women, elderly, and also the Palestinian journalists. But during this war, we felt and we realized that the Israeli army put the journalists in the same level of the militants because the Israeli army accused them that they're trying to prove or to raise the narrative of the Palestinian resistance inside Gaza. And this accusation by the Israeli army for the whole journalists, not for the journalists as the army claimed that they belonging to Hamas or the Islamic Jihad. No, we have tens of journalists who were killed and they were independent journalists. They didn't belong to any Palestinian factions because we know each others.
Being a journalist during this war came with added risk, and this increased risk didn't impact Sanaa alone.
I was very concerned and very worried of my family. Many times I felt that maybe I'm the dangerous thing for my family that may be attacked by the Israeli army. I remember that when the Israeli army targeted the journalist, I told my family, we should sleep now because maybe it would be the last night for each other. maybe the army will attack us just because I'm a journalist, just because I'm trying all the time to expose the criminals and the crimes inside Gaza against the innocent people.
Did you ever think about leaving and going to live separately, just in case?
No, actually, because I know that if I leave them and live separately, far away from them, they will not live in stability because I'm their breadwinner and I'm the person who really caring about them and can help them to cope with their dire situation during the war. In addition, my mom didn't like to let me go far away from them, even if I remember that I told my mother that I would like to live inside the office, my office in the Ramal neighborhood, just to protect them from any attack, and she rejected that and told me, you will never leave our house. We will live together and we will live together. In addition, we will die together.
Sanaa was one of a number of journalists working in Gaza, all of whom had to adapt to the new realities when the war started.
In peacetime, actually, the journalists in Gaza were busy. Every one of us was busy in his own stories, in his own companies or outlets that we were working with. I remember that we only saw each other during some events or even some public festivals that we used to cover it. But after that, everyone was busy in his own life.
But that's different during wartime?
Yeah, during the war, it's completely different because during the war, we used to contact with each other and to see where the journalists are gathering, normally gathering to work together in the same place because we believed that to be with each other, that would at least protect ourselves from the Israeli attacks because the Israeli army, when would like to attack any journalist, the army will not attack a gather of journalists like when we were dozens of journalists in the same place because I think the Israeli army will not try to provoke the world more than what he did during the war.
As well as making adjustments to movements, Sanaa had to adjust what she was taking out with her into the field when she worked.
During the peace times, I only talk with me, my mobile phone, a record, and the camera to document the interviews that I'm carrying out with other people. But during the wars, the main thing that I used to take with me, my Hamlet, the press vest, mobile, laptop, some alcohol sprays, maybe to have my own tools if I would face an emergency or being injured or anything, not only for me, but also for my colleagues who used to follow me on the ground to cover the situation.
Sanaa's phone, laptop, camera and recorder all required electricity, which quickly became a scarce resource in Gaza.
Once the Israeli authorities decided to cut off the electricity of Gaza directly, I declared the emergency of my work. So I bought battery, a power panel. It's a small solar panel just to charge my laptop through the sunlight. When the battery is running out and even the panel was broken, I decided to use my car battery. I take off my car vehicle battery and use it as alternative for the battery that was running out. And when its charge was running out, I return it to the car and operate the car just to recharge the battery like that. So I have many alternatives that I used to have a little bit of electricity or even power that at least turn on my laptop and turn on the internet to be in connection with Gaza or others.
When the solar panels and car batteries failed, the final option was hospitals. With their on-site generators, when they were functional, they could be a useful resource, particularly when it came to getting an internet signal needed to file stories. But getting to a hospital was not always possible.
When I didn't have any opportunity to go to the hospital, I tried to use the eSIM.
eSIMs allowed users to connect to wireless networks and circumvented Israeli blocks on mobile signals.
But it's very difficult for me because to get the signal of eSIM, I have to go up of the roof of the building that I lived, and it was a building of 6th floor. But the Israeli army, when monitor anyone on up areas,
Being on the ground in Gaza was dangerous enough, but being on top of a building was even more dangerous.
the Israeli quadcopters or drones directly attacked them. I remembered also when I was in Rafah city, I tried to get the signal of eSIM through the balcony. An Israeli drone approached me, and it was only a few meters between each other. I looked at it, and to be honest, I thought that it will attack me for sure. Directly, I'm running and escaped from the balcony while I'm breathing and trying and thinking all the night that okay, this night the Israeli army will attack me just to get signal for eSIM. After that, I decided to not try to get any signal of electronic SIM and to keep going to the hospital, at least to be with other journalists. Even if the Israeli army will attack them, they will not attack the whole gather of the journalists.
When the Israeli government started to put pressure on the companies who provided the eSIMs, they ended the service for the people in Gaza. Sanaa did her best to keep in contact with some of the people who had been scattered by Israel's war across the Gaza Strip. But for her work as a journalist, she had to be in contact with her editor, Yazin al-Sadi, who was based in Beirut, Lebanon. You're an editor, Yazin. You're a New Arab's international editor. You manage a number of correspondents. The last time, in the region anyway, that we saw a conflict that came even close to this was Syria. Had you ever managed a journalist working in this sort of environment? And then also how do you manage a journalist working in this sort of environment? Or did you just have to learn as you went along?
I've worked with people in similar environments, let's say, which were devastating. At the same time, this was a very particular environment because the magnitude of violence and danger is very heightened. We're looking at not just a war, but a genocide. So already the dangers that exist in a good old natural war is is like times 1,000 times, there is no barrier. And I learned that by doing, right? It wasn't really a course or anything of that sort that I took beforehand. It was just the experience of working journalism in the region with all the events that followed. So that was sort of my background. And then working with Sanaa, there were very particular difficulties. I mean, for me, my main concern was her security, which I had no control of as someone far away. But I was worried about her security in terms of what she was capable of doing in that environment, as well as how safe she was, and just touching base from a day-to-day level. So it was engaging on that front as her editor and to support her. I think one of the things that I try to see beyond just getting the story is the journalist behind the story. So, like, what was the impact on Sanaa? How was she doing? When I would ask for like a breaking news, I would also be sensitive about is she capable? And it's okay if she's not capable. She's under a genocide, you know? But there's always that tension. I wonder about this as well, because there's always the bigger question that happens in capitalism, right? The obligation to be productive. But I think for me, I'm not a capitalistic person, so I tend more to my obligation to my colleague more so than to produce right away.
Did you ever either actually tell Sana enough? Stop your job. It doesn't matter. Just leave. Just try any way you can to leave and get out. Or did you consider? Was there any point that you considered saying, you know what, Sana, this just isn't worth it anymore?
I mean, it was an ongoing conversation with Sanaa. I totally respected what she wanted to do, right? Like there were points where she wanted to go back to Gaza City. We were talking about that.
From Rafah.
And from Rafah, to go back to sneak into Gaza City, to go back to her office and apartment, even if it's damaged, to cover the story there. And I took that into consideration. We spoke frankly, it is dangerous. There is a security thing, but I respect you as an adult. And you've been doing this for a long time, so you can tell me. At the same time, I'd always advise, right? Like, so there were personal impacts, right? Don't forget, Sana is a human being. She lost family and colleagues. So we would talk about that. I'd be like, okay, take a day to mourn
Hmm.
or take the time to mourn. Or if you feel like you can do the story, let's write about them because it's using journalism to process what is happening, but also doing journalism, right? That is the story. So it was always that sort of kind of interaction with Sana. In terms of her leaving Gaza, I mean, again, it was always a conversation. When she needed help, I tried to help as I could. I like talked to her about it, see what connections I could bring to the table.
Hmm.
And I just tried to follow up on the process, right? To always try to be updated in terms of her movements and understand where she's going, what's happening, what's her state of mind. That's the role I was taking on. And to give her the credit that is due because she was doing journalism. And she was also doing journalism because it was a sense of urgency and duty from her parts, and it was her job. So there's so many aspects here. And I worry about that. Like I would ask her, right? Like, if I push you to do a story, are you able to do it in the span of the time we're asking? Because sometimes journalism can be cutthroat in terms
Hmm.
of you need to deliver in 3 hours, which again, in the context of a genocide, is a very surreal ask to do. Because you know what I mean? Like, do you like? I'm talking about the meta concept of it, but yeah, you work with that, and you try to be as humane and you try to do what you can do. I think.
How did you find Yaz and Sana? I mean, was he helpful, or was he that nagging voice on WhatsApp, and you just really wanted to get on with it and be left alone? Or
During the war, my relationship with Yazan, mainly the friendship relation with Yazan, has been increased because of the war. Because to be honest, Yazan is one of the three people who really I only responded to them during the war because of the war and because of a lot of missions that I have to do. I decide to ignore the social media and to ignore all the messages that I received from a lot of people, not because anything, just because I don't have time and I don't want to put myself under the pressure all the time because most of the people would give you some negative energy and I didn't want to get this energy. But Yazan all the time during the whole war, since the first day of the war, I felt that he really care about me as Sana, not as a journalist who have to do stories for him, but only as a human, as maybe a sister, as a friend, as anything that he thinking of me. In addition, I used to get my positive power from Yazan because during each conversation we did during the war, he concluded the conversation that you should do the best thing to be safe. This is the most important thing for me. I didn't want you to write stories. If you can't do that, the work will be done. In addition, sometimes because of the war, maybe I felt that I didn't produce a lot of stories for him. But every time he told me, no, you did very good work, and I appreciate that. While I was worried about my working, he was encouraged me to continue. While I was worried of my family, he encouraged me to take care of my family.
This war has been brutal for journalists. While Israel denies it has deliberately targeted journalists, since the start of the conflict, a deeply disturbing trend has developed.
When I hear or when I think about the high number of the Palestinian journalists who were killed by the Israeli army and how the international and Arab deal or react with such high number, I believe, unfortunately, that we became numbers for the world. That let me down all the time. But in turn, despite the Israeli army killed a high number of journalists, we have a lot of Palestinian activists in the ground who turned to journalists or to field journalists during the war, despite they were not journalists only, but they became activists on social media, and they tried all the time to replace the journalists who absence or for simply absence from the field. Like in the north of Gaza, we can see and we can know what's happening inside Bet Lahia and Jabalia and Bet Hanun towns in the north of Gaza through the social media activists, not through the journalists, because most of the journalists either were killed or were expelled from their areas. I believe that as Palestinians, we all the time have alternatives. All the time we have the mission to tell our stories to the world. But I think that the Palestinians inside Gaza now believe in themselves to expose the Israeli crimes by themselves. The basic goal for the Israeli army when killed the high number of journalists to make the situation in Gaza darkness.
Being a journalist can be a difficult job. It's a job, like many others, that brings with it a lot of responsibility. It can feel lonely at times. One person writing against the power of a group, or a vast company, or a state. When that power has the ability, inclination, and even the desire to do you harm or kill you, the difficulty is magnitudes greater. With the start of the war, Gaza became the most dangerous place in the world to be a journalist. Not only was it a violent, chaotic and hostile war zone, but to be a journalist also made you and your family a target. Between October 7th, 2023 and March 26th, 2025, 232 journalists were killed in Gaza. Approximately 13 a month. More journalists have been killed in Gaza than in the Vietnam War, the wars in Yugoslavia, and the US war in Afghanistan combined. Sanaa survived. She was lucky. And her resolve as a journalist, that also survived.
All the time, I tried to expose the Israeli crimes against the civilians. Since this war started and erupted, I tried to make my space in journalism for the innocent people and to tell their stories. I think it's very important to tell their stories and to expose how the Israeli army prevent them and decide to kill them in cold blood. I'm proud to say that I'm a war correspondent that have the mission to expose the Israeli crimes inside Gaza to the world and even to push the world to take, at least to adopt reactions that would pressure Israel to stop its war against the Palestinians in Gaza, even if it hasn't done yet. I'm sure after the war, our stories will be the basic documents that would punish Israel through the international court.
On the next episode of Sanaa's Odyssey, Sanaa and her family make a break for the border and try to escape the nightmare.
When I decided to leave Gaza, it was the most difficult decision to get it by myself.
This episode was written and produced by me, Hugo Goodridge. It featured Sanaa Kamal and Yazan Al-Sadi. You can follow all the latest developments in Gaza and across the Middle East by visiting the New Arabs website.